She was the sexiest, most difficult landlady in this apartment building. He was the detail-oriented programmer tenant. She gave him a hard time over property fees. He struck back with renovation noise. An unexpected power outage revealed her fear of the dark to him. A late-night leak let her see his gentle side. This is the story of a landlady and her tenant, and also a story about barriers, understanding, and love. From the day the lease began, our story was destined to be extraordinary. The scent of approaching summer grew richer, filling the air with a subtle, ambiguous intimacy. The city, too, gradually donned a light summer veil, the wind turning soft and languid. Apartment viewings should be quick and decisive. I rubbed my aching neck and put down my phone. After more than a month of searching, I finally found a reasonably satisfactory studio apartment in this nicely furnished building. As a newly employed programmer, both the location and the rent were at the absolute limit of what I could afford. The moment I pushed open the main entrance, a blast of cool air greeted me, a sharp contrast to the muggy heat outside. At the front desk sat a kind, amiable Annie Zhang, greeting residents. Seeing me, she immediately smiled broadly. "Young man, here to view an apartment?" "Yes, I have an appointment with the landlord of 1809. "Oh, Miss Su Yuqing's apartment." Annie Zhang's smile took on a knowing edge. "She's already upstairs waiting for you." In the elevator, I straightened my slightly wrinkled shirt. I hadn't been this nervous even during my interview with a major tech firm. I'd heard this landlady was exceptionally picky, having already rejected several prospective tenants in a row. Ding! The moment the elevator doors opened, an elegant figure came into view. She wore a simple white dress, its hem swaying gently with her rhythm as she walked, like a night-blooming flower, cool and elegant. Her dark hair was casually pinned up, revealing the slender line of her neck, looking especially captivating in the hallway's light and shadow. "You're Li Wuxin?" Her voice was clear, yet held an indefinable note of authority. "Yes. Hello, Miss Su." I instinctively straightened my posture. As she turned to lead the way, a faint, subtle fragrance drifted from her, like the first scent of a morning garden, compelling one to seek its source. I followed close behind, my eyes involuntarily drawn to her elegant figure from behind. The room was more spacious than it appeared in the photos and had excellent natural light. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing the wooden floor in a warm, golden light. Su Yuqing leaned against the window frame, her backlit silhouette perfectly outlining her curves. "Rent is $3,500 a month. Deposit is 1 month's rent, payable 3 months in advance. You'll also need to pay an additional $500 for the property management fee." Her tone brooked no argument. "If that's acceptable, we can sign the lease now." I frowned. "Hold on, the agent told me the property management fee was included in the rent." "Oh." She raised an eyebrow slightly, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. It seems the agent misspoke again. The property management fee in this building is always handled by the tenant. But if you find it too expensive, feel free to look elsewhere." Her voice remained even, but her eyes revealed a flicker of impatience. Just then, a breeze drifted in through the window, gently lifting the hem of her dress, revealing a flash of her pale, smooth calf. In that instant, the words caught in my throat, and my heart involuntarily skipped a beat. "I'll take it." As if compelled by some unseen force, I heard myself say it. A faint smile touched her lips. "Wise choice." As she turned to get the lease, I distinctly saw the triumphant curve of her lips. This was a dangerous beginning, I thought. But some attractions are like sweet traps in summer. You know the danger, yet find them irresistible. After signing the contract, she handed the keys to me. The brush of our fingertips was fleeting, yet it felt like a tiny electric current passed through, making my heart tremble. "Welcome." As she turned to leave, her high heels tapped out a crisp rhythm on the floor. "I hope you'll abide by all the apartment rules." Watching her retreating figure, I suddenly realized this summer was destined to be anything but calm. A storm was brewing, and I had willingly walked right into its vortex. That very evening, I started moving in. On the hot summer night, the air was thick with sweltering heat. Annie Zhang helped me find a small trolley and enthusiastically gave instructions from the side. Miss Sue is usually very busy. She basically only comes to the apartment on weekends. She chattered on while helping me move boxes, but she's a good person, just a bit stubborn sometimes. I freed a hand to wipe the sweat from my forehead, thinking to myself that this definition of good might need a question mark. After tidying up all evening, the room finally started to look lived in. Lying in bed, moonlight streamed in through the window, casting dappled shadows on the floor. Faintly, I could almost still smell that elusive trace of perfume lingering in the air, unsettling my thoughts. Just then, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from the landlord. Someone will come to install a new smart lock tomorrow, 9 a.m. Make sure you wait. Okay, I replied. Remember, don't be late. I don't like waiting. Why did that sound a bit like asking someone out on a date? I shook my head, banishing the absurd thought from my mind. Yet, involuntarily, the image of her standing by the window appeared before my eyes, that silhouette seemingly etched deep into my memory. The night deepened, the moonlight grew brighter. This summer night felt exceptionally long, like an endless dream, and I seemed to have already lost myself at the entrance to this dream. The next morning, just after I finished washing up, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, but it wasn't the expected installer. It was Sue Yuching herself. Today she wore a different professional outfit, a black skirt suit that outlined her perfect curves, exuding an irresistible aura. I thought it was the installer, I said, slightly flustered. They had something come up last minute, rescheduled for the afternoon. She walked past me into the room, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. I came to check on how you settled in last night. Morning light streamed through the window, bathing her in a soft halo. Her gaze swept around the room, missing no detail. I stood aside, watching her inspect everything so carefully, and suddenly found this version of her quite attractive too. Placing the bookshelf here affects the natural light, she said suddenly. It needs to be moved. Oh, okay. I went over, ready to move the bookshelf. Just then, she also reached out to help. In the cramped space, our bodies inevitably brushed against each other briefly. In that instant, I caught the scent of her fresh perfume, even more alluring than yesterday. Sorry, I apologized instinctively, taking a step back. She chuckled lightly. Are you always this easily flustered? Before the words were out, her phone suddenly rang. After answering the call, her expression turned serious. Something urgent came up at the company. I have to go. Handle the installation this afternoon yourself. Watching her hurry away, I let out a long breath, yet felt the room suddenly seem empty. The sunlight was still bright, but something seemed to be missing. That was my first close encounter with my landlord. Back then, I didn't know it was just the beginning of a whole series of events. And she, like an intricately designed puzzle, made one irresistibly want to peel back her layers, veil by veil. But at this moment, I just stood by the window, watching her figure hurry away downstairs, an indescribable emotion surging within me. This summer was destined not to be peaceful, and I, it seemed, had unknowingly walked into a labyrinth full of unknowns. Summer night downpours always arrived without warning. At 11:30 late at night, I was concentrating on writing code when suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared outside, and a torrential rain began to fall. The sound of raindrops hitting the glass was exceptionally clear, yet it didn't affect my concentration in the slightest. As a programmer, this state of coding late into the night was perfectly normal. However, accidents always happen when least expected. Just as I was about to make myself a third cup of coffee, a muffled thud suddenly came from the bathroom, followed by the gushing sound of water. I opened the bathroom door and was instantly dumbfounded. The water pipe had burst at some point, and a jet of water was dancing merrily in the air, flooding the floor completely in the blink of an eye. Damn it! I scrambled to find the water valve, only to discover I couldn't shut it off at all. Left with no choice, I could only dial the landlady's number. Disturbing the beautiful landlady late at night. No matter how you thought about it, this wasn't good. The phone rang several times before it was picked up. Her slightly languid voice came through the receiver. It's so late. What is it? Miss Sue, I'm sorry to bother you so late. I tried hard to make my tone sound sincere enough. The bathroom pipe burst, and I can't turn off the water. There were a few seconds of silence on the other end, followed by a faint sigh. I'll call a repairman over right away. Ah, they still work this late. Did you think I want to deal with this kind of thing in the middle of the night? Her tone suddenly turned a bit cold. Before the repairman arrives, figure out a way to control the water first. Hanging up the phone, I stare at the water that had already accumulated half an inch deep, completely at a loss. Just as I was making futile attempts with towels and a wash basin, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, the sight that greeted me made me instantly forget the flooded floor. Su Yuqing stood at the door, her jet-black hair slightly messy, a thin coat draped over her shoulders, revealing a silk nightgown underneath, faintly visible in the hallway light. Clearly, she had been woken up unexpectedly. "Where's the repairman?" I asked subconsciously. "He won't be here for another half hour." She walked in frowning. "Where's the pipe?" I pointed towards the bathroom. She strode over quickly, her high-heeled slippers making soft splashing sounds in the pooled water. At that moment, I suddenly realized that this usually decisive and capable businesswoman also had a vulnerable and real side. The water in the bathroom was getting deeper. She stood on tiptoe, examining the pipe situation, the hem of her nightgown inevitably getting wet. I forced myself to look away, concentrating on stuffing towels into the door gap to prevent the water from flowing into the living room. "Do you always work this late?" she asked suddenly. "Yeah, programmer schedules are like this," I replied while wiping the floor. "Sorry again for bothering you so late." She turned her head to glance at me. "Resting earlier is better for your health. Staring at a computer all day, no wonder you have such dark circles under your eyes." This was the first time she had commented on my life. I froze for a second, surprised she would notice such details. Just then, a loud clap of thunder exploded outside the window. She was clearly startled, instinctively taking a step back, but accidentally stepped into the deeper water. I subconsciously reached out to steady her, and she reflexively grabbed my arm. In that instant, time seemed to stand still. I could feel the slight trembling in her palm, and her perfume seemed more distinct in the damp air. We were so close I could feel her breath, and her slightly upturned face, still showing a trace of panic, looked exceptionally captivating. I'm fine." She quickly let go of my hand, pretending to be calm as she smoothed her nightgown. An indescribable, ambiguous tension filled the air. Fortunately, the doorbell rang just then. The repairman had finally arrived. The repair didn't go smoothly, as the necessary replacement part wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. After a temporary fix, it was already past 1 in the morning. "I'll have someone deliver the part tomorrow morning for the replacement." She put on her coat, ready to leave. Take tomorrow off work and wait at home. But I was about to say I couldn't get away from work, but I met her stern gaze. "This is an order, not a discussion." Her tone left no room for argument. I don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night again. With that said, she turned to leave. But after taking just one step, she stopped again. "All right, you drink too much coffee." I saw all those coffee cans in the cupboard. I was taken aback, surprised she'd noticed that detail. "Staying up late isn't good for you." Her tone softened slightly. "Usually, try to get more rest." Watching her figure disappear down the end of the hallway, I suddenly felt that this usually assertive landlord seemed to have an unexpectedly gentle side. By the time I cleaned up the mess everywhere, it was almost 2 o'clock. Lying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. Images kept flashing through my mind. Her expression when she was startled by the thunder, the warmth of her hand when she grabbed my arm. That night, the entire apartment building was enveloped in the storm. The sound of the rain gradually lessened, but it continued incessantly. Tossing and turning, I replayed the night's details in my mind and suddenly realized that our relationship seemed to have undergone a subtle change. Early the next morning, just as I finished cleaning the floor, the repairman arrived. To my surprise, Su Yuqing showed up too. She had changed into sharp business attire, making the woman in the nightgown from last night seem like an illusion. "I was just passing by and thought I'd check on the repair," she said calmly, but her gaze seemed to intentionally, yet unintentionally avoid mine. During the repair, she stood to the side, supervising. Sunlight streamed in through the window, bathing her in a soft halo of light. I secretly glanced at her profile, trying to find a trace of the vulnerable figure from last night, but only saw her usual competence and assertiveness. I'll deduct the repair cost from the rent, she said suddenly, just before leaving. Oh, there's no need for that, is there? I was a bit surprised. After all, it broke while I was using it. She glanced at me, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. Consider it a reward for your decent performance last night. With that, she turned and left, her high heels clicking sharply on the floor. That was the first time I'd ever seen her smile. The smile was fleeting, yet like the first ray of sunshine on a summer morning, warm and dazzling. Mr. Lee, her voice came from the doorway. Get some proper rest today. Don't stay up late again tonight. She said it softly, but it made my heart skip a beat. This seemingly assertive landlord's inadvertent displays of concern always caught me off guard. Watching her retreating figure, I suddenly felt that perhaps this late-night incident had become a turning point in our relationship. Like a summer night's downpour, it came unexpectedly, but brought a touch of coolness to the sweltering summer. I just didn't know what other storms awaited us. Autumn passed into winter. In the blink of an eye, winter had arrived. Winter arrived in this city with striking suddenness, as if the whole world had been cloaked in chill overnight. At the office, while I was focused on modifying code, Wang Xiaoming's annoying voice suddenly sounded beside me. Hey, heard the heating bill for your apartment building went up? I answered with a grunt, without looking up. This matter had already caused an uproar in the residents' group chat, but I always followed the principle of less trouble is better and couldn't be bothered to get involved. Tisk, tisk, Wang Xiaoming persistently leaned over. Your landlady, I hear she's quite a beauty. My fingers paused on the keyboard for a moment. My mind involuntarily pictured that rainy night. Her expression when she was startled by the thunder. At that moment, she was like a completely different person compared to her usual resolute and efficient image. None of your business. I continued typing. Buddy, I'm just looking out for you. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. I know someone at the property management company, and they said this rent hike was entirely the landlady's own decision. I frowned. What do you mean? It means, he put on an inscrutable expression. This is a great opportunity for you to negotiate with the landlady. I stopped what I was doing and finally looked at him seriously. Get to the point. It's simple. You go confront her. If she can't produce an official notice from the property management company, it proves this hike is unfounded. He winked suggestively. Then, won't she have no choice but to compromise? I was just about to say that idea was too naive when my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Su Yuqing. Tonight, 8 p.m., 1809. Let's talk about the heating fee. Looks like I won't need your advice. I showed the phone to Wang Xiaoming. The landlady wants to talk herself. Even better, he slapped the table. Remember, you have to stand your ground. Let her know we tenants aren't pushovers. I shook my head helplessly. This guy, usually so mild-mannered at the office, was strangely invested in this. At 7:50 p.m. sharp, I knocked on the door of 1809. The moment the door opened, a faint, subtle fragrance greeted me. Su Yuqing was wearing a beige, turtleneck sweater paired with black pencil pants, making her look exceptionally gentle. This was the first time I had seen her in casual wear, and, I had to admit, she seemed more approachable like this than usual. Punctual, she nodded slightly. Have a seat. I sat down on the sofa, my gaze unconsciously drifting around the room. It was my first time in her apartment. The decor was simple, yet hinted at an artistic flair. A few abstract paintings hung on the wall, and on the coffee table lay a faded copy of 100 Years of Solitude. About the heating fee, she began, elegantly lifting her teacup. I assume you've seen the discussion in the group chat. I nodded. Yes, people have strong objections. So, I've decided, she said, putting down her teacup and looking directly into my eyes, to give you a special discount. I was stunned, not expecting this kind of opening. But a glint of shrewdness flashed in her eyes. There's a condition. What condition? Help me persuade the other tenants to accept this price adjustment. I almost choked. What kind of bizarre request was this? Asking me to be her advocate? Why me? Because you're different. A faint smile touched her lips. At least you know when to approach me directly, instead of arguing endlessly in a group chat. That reminded me of the night the pipe burst. Maybe it was because of that incident that her impression of me had changed. But I began, choosing my words carefully, without an official notice from the property management company. This price increase really does lack justification. Her expression suddenly turned amused. Who says there isn't a notice? With that, she retrieved a document from under the coffee table. I took it and looked. Sure enough, it was the official notice from the property management company. It clearly stated the reasons and details for the price adjustment. So, her voice held a hint of smugness. Do you still think the price increase is baseless? I put down the documents, feeling a bit awkward. Wang Xiaoming's information was clearly wrong, almost making me look like a fool. Then why didn't you just announce this notice in a group chat? Some things, she stood up and walked to the window, her back to me, can't be solved just by documents. What I need is the residents' understanding and trust. Moonlight streamed in from the window, casting a soft halo around her silhouette. At this moment, she seemed to have shed her usual assertiveness, appearing remarkably real. So, she turned around, the moonlight shimmering in her eyes. Are you willing to help me? I looked at her expectant gaze, feeling momentarily dazed. Seeing her like this, it was hard to refuse. Okay, I heard myself say. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. Well then, about your discount. Just then, her phone suddenly rang. It was a video call. She frowned slightly, seeming hesitant about whether to answer. Go wait on the balcony for a moment first. She pointed towards the balcony. I walked out onto the balcony. The night breeze was slightly cool. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, I saw her answer the video call. It seemed to be an older woman on the other end, her voice coming through intermittently. Xiao Qing, you've lost weight again. Take care of yourself. Mom, I'm fine. Her voice remained calm, but her tone had clearly softened. Work has been busy lately. I'll come back to visit you after a while. So was her mother. I suddenly realized that this seemingly strong woman also showed a gentle side in front of her parents. The video call ended quickly. She walked onto the balcony, a hint of helplessness still on her face. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's all right, I said softly. Your parents. Are they doing okay? She paused for a moment, seemingly surprised I would ask that question. In the moonlight, her expression looked a bit lonely. They are fine. They just always worry about me being out here alone. Her words reminded me of my own parents. Being far from home, some feelings of longing are universal. About the heating fees, she quickly composed herself. If you can persuade the other residents, I'll waive your heating fees entirely for this winter. Isn't that a bit much? Do you think I'm the type to make a losing deal? She smiled slyly. Helping me with this is also an opportunity for you. What kind of opportunity? To prove you're not just a programmer who only knows how to write code. Her gaze held a hint of challenge. Or perhaps, you don't think you can handle it. Her words stirred my competitive spirit. At work, I've always been known for my logic. Persuading others is just another application of logic. Deal. I held out my hand. She smiled and shook my hand. Her hand was soft, yet carried a faint, almost imperceptible tremor. Perhaps the night breeze was too cold. I subconsciously said, shouldn't you go inside first? It's a bit cold out here. She raised an eyebrow. Starting to care about your landlord already? I was momentarily speechless, unsure how to respond. All right, she turned and walked back inside. Go back and get some rest. You have work tomorrow. Watching her retreating figure, I suddenly felt like this winter wasn't so cold after all. At least in this moment, the distance between us felt a little closer than usual. Back in my room, I took out my phone and sent Wang Xiaoming a message. Your intel was wrong. The property management did send out a notice. He replied instantly. Huh? No way. So didn't you make a fool of yourself in front of the landlord? I looked at my phone screen, the corners of my mouth turning up unconsciously. Quite the opposite, actually. I got an interesting task instead. What task? I didn't reply to him, opening the residents' group chat instead. How should I convince the other tenants? This question gave me a bit of headache for a moment. But for some reason, I actually started looking forward to the challenge. Perhaps this winter might turn out to be quite interesting. Early in the morning, a harsh drilling sound jolted me awake. I looked up at the clock. It was only 7 in the morning. Loud banging came from upstairs, as if someone was trying to hammer through the ceiling. I rubbed my sleepy eyes. Last night, I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. rushing a project deadline, hoping to catch up on sleep over the weekend. I hadn't expected this. Is someone renovating upstairs? I asked in the residents' group chat. Soon, the group chat exploded. It turned out that after the tenant in 1909 moved out, Su Yuqing planned to take the opportunity to renovate and raise the rent. But nobody had expected the construction crew to start work so early on a weekend morning. Just as I was about to message Su Yuqing, Wang Xiaoming called, "Bro, this is a great chance for you to shine." "What do you mean? Didn't you promise to help her sort out the heating fee issue?" Wang Xiaoming's voice was tinged with excitement. "Now's your chance. Help the tenants out first. Once you handle the renovation issue, negotiating the heating fee will be much easier, right?" I paused for a moment. The idea actually seemed feasible. Besides, he continued, urging me on, "Aren't you a programmer? Working from home requires quiet above all else. This gives you a legitimate reason." I glanced at the unfinished code on my computer screen and sighed. "All right, I'll give it a try." I dialed Su Yuqing's number, but no one answered. I sent a message. It showed as read, but there was no reply. This obvious avoidance only stoked my competitive spirit. Getting dressed, I went straight up to the 19th floor. Before I even reached 1909, I could hear bustling sound from inside. The door was wide open, with several workers moving materials in and out. Amidst the construction crew, I spotted Su Yuqing immediately. She was wearing a white casual outfit today, her hair tied back loosely, yet it couldn't hide her elegant demeanor. Seeing me, she was visibly taken aback for a second, but quickly regained her composure. "Do you need something?" Her tone was still distant. "Can we talk about the renovation?" She glanced at her watch. "Okay, 5 minutes." We walked to the corner of the hallway. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking at me. "Go ahead. Starting work this early on a weekend disturbs the other residents' rest." I chose my words carefully. Could the construction hours possibly be adjusted? Renovations always involve some noise. Her tone held a trace of impatience. "It can't be helped, but suitable times can be chosen." I continued, "Like weekdays or starting a bit later?" "Weekdays," she scoffed. "Are you suggesting I have the crew work while other residents are trying to work?" Her counter-question left me speechless for a moment. "Li Wuxin," she looked directly into my eyes, "I recall you promised to help me handle the heating fee matter, and now you're here arguing with me?" I took a deep breath. "It's precisely because I need to help you with the heating fees that we should avoid creating new conflicts." She stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly broke into a meaningful smile. "You're right. All right then, how about this? If you can convince everyone to accept the heating fee adjustment within a week, I'll agree to adjust the construction schedule." "But it's settled then." She turned to leave, but stopped. "By the way, don't think I don't know about Wang Xiaoming's idea for you." My heart skipped a beat. "How did you—" That so-called inside information he provided, her voice carried a hint of amusement. "Where do you think it came from?" Something dawned on me. "You leaked it on purpose?" She smiled without saying anything and turned away. Watching her leave, I suddenly felt like a clown who'd been thoroughly played. Back in the room, the noise from the renovation continued. I opened my laptop and stared blankly at the code. My phone suddenly chimed. It was a message from Wang Xiaoming. "How did it go?" "Sorted." I replied irritably. "Sorted? Like hell." She completely turned the tables on me. "Huh." He called right away. "What exactly happened?" I told him what had happened. There was silence on the other end for a good while. "Man," his voice suddenly turned serious. "Don't you think this woman is incredibly cunning? Deliberately spreading false information, setting a trap like that." "I was too naive," I said with a wry smile, thinking I could use this opportunity. "Wait," he suddenly cut me off. "I've got an idea." "No more ideas," I said wearily. "Your last one caused enough trouble." No, this one's legit." He lowered his voice. "Have you ever wondered why she absolutely has to renovate on the weekend?" I froze. "Why?" "Because she has to work on weekdays." His voice was filled with triumph. "So, if we could get the other tenants to complain during the week." "Stop right there." I cut him off immediately. "That's too underhanded. It's called giving her a taste of her own medicine." He started to say more, but I just hung up. Looking at the sunlight outside the window, I suddenly felt weary. Why did what should have been a simple rental situation become so complicated? Just then my phone vibrated. It was a message from Su Yuqing. "Rooftop, 8 p.m. The brief message made my heart race. I knew this showdown wasn't over yet. As evening fell, I arrived punctually on the rooftop. The sunset's afterglow dyed half the sky red. Su Yuqing was already waiting there. She wore a black trench coat, seeming almost to merge into the dusk. "About today," she began, getting straight to the point. "I admit I was inconsiderate. I hadn't expected her to say that, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. But," she turned to face me, "you also disappointed me." "What do you mean? I thought you would communicate with me directly, instead of listening to malicious gossip." Her voice was soft, yet every word cut deep. "Am I really just some unreasonable person in your eyes?" Her question struck me. It was true. Since the night the pipe burst, while she had been forceful, she'd never actually done anything completely unreasonable. I had been too eager to prove myself, and in doing so had lost the most basic trust. "I'm sorry," I said in a low voice. "No need to apologize." Her tone softened slightly. "After all, in your eyes, I'm just the kind of landlord who enjoys giving tenants a hard time." "No," I countered instinctively. "You're not like that." She paused, taken aback for a moment. In the moonlight, her gaze seemed particularly soft. "Oh, then what kind of person am I?" I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. The night breeze stirred her hair, and for an instant, I found her stunningly beautiful. "Forget it," she chuckled softly. "I'll reschedule the renovations. You should head back now." "Wait," I called out to her about the heating bill. "Don't worry about it," she said without turning back. "I'll handle it myself." Watching her retreating figure, I suddenly felt a pang of loss. This confrontation, I hadn't just lost, I had also lost her trust. Back in the room, the noise from the renovation had long stopped. But my heart couldn't find peace for a long time. The phone screen lit up. It was a message from Wang Xiaoming. "Bro, want to try a different strategy?" I looked at the message and suddenly laughed. Some things can't be solved just by strategy. Like my mood right now, so complicated even I couldn't sort it out. Outside the window, the moonlight was cold and clear, shining into the empty room. I stood by the window, yet I kept unconsciously looking up towards the 19th floor. There, maybe the lights were still on, or perhaps it had long fallen into darkness. The cold December wind swept up a few fallen leaves, swirling them in the air. I stood downstairs by the apartment building, staring blankly at my phone screen. In the residents' group chat, a heated discussion was raging about the new round of property management fee adjustments, and this time, the uproar stemmed from an unexpected discovery. "Did you see the new notice posted? The property management fees are going up again." Someone revealed in the group. "No way. What's the reason this time?" "They say it's for equipment upgrades. Residents need to share the cost." Watching the rising and falling complaints in the group, I suddenly noticed a detail. Su Yuqing's signature was actually missing from this notice. This was highly unusual, because for any previous fee adjustments, she would always communicate with the property management company in advance and sign the notice to confirm. Just as I was wondering whether to remind everyone about this issue, a private message suddenly popped up. "Come up." 3 simple words. "Zazinda va Su Yuqing." In the elevator, I recalled our last conversation on the rooftop. Since then, our interactions had become particularly distant, as if we had reverted to the initial landlord and tenant relationship. The door to 1809 was open, but there was no one in the room. On the coffee table sat a steaming cup of coffee, next to a stack of documents. "Come in." Her voice came from the study. "Drink the coffee while it's hot." I walked into the study and found her quickly browsing through some documents on her computer. Today she was wearing a beige turtleneck sweater, making her look exceptionally soft. "About the property management fee," she said without looking up. "What do you think?" I picked up the coffee and took a sip. It was Americano with sugar. This small detail warmed my heart. She still remembered my preference. "Your signature isn't on the notice." I stated my observation directly. She stopped her work, turned around to look at me, a flash of appreciation in her eyes. "And also, the wording of the notice is strange. Usually, there's a detailed breakdown of costs, but this time it's vague." A faint smile appeared on her face. "Not bad. It seems you've really been observing carefully." Saying this, she took a document out of a drawer. "Guess what this is?" I took it and looked. It was an internal email from the property management company. It clearly stated, Employees who post price adjustment notices without the consent of the homeowner representative will be disciplined. So, this notice was posted by someone unauthorized. Exactly. She stood up, walked to the window. Someone tried to muddy the waters, but they don't know who lives in this building. Sunlight streamed through the window onto her profile, outlining a soft silhouette. At this moment, she was no longer that assertive landlord, but more like a guardian. Are you the homeowner representative for this building? She turned around, leaning against the windowsill. Not just the representative. 1/3 of the properties in this building are mine. I was stunned. No wonder she cared so much about everything here. So, about this matter, I need you to do me a favor. She looked directly into my eyes. Help me clarify this matter in the group chat. Why me? You could easily explain it yourself. Because her voice suddenly softened. I want to know if you are still trustworthy. That sentence struck me. The conversation on the rooftop last time surfaced in my mind. I had indeed betrayed her trust then. All right, I nodded. I promise you. She smiled, a genuine smile from the heart. No need for the formal you this time. Just call me by my name. Just as I was about to say something, her phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Hello. She answered the phone, her expression suddenly turning serious. What? A leak in 1609? I'll be right over. Hanging up, she quickly gathered her documents. Do you want to come along? I nodded. On the way, she briefly explained the situation. The resident of 1609 was an elderly man living alone. His apartment had suddenly started leaking, and they couldn't reach a repairman immediately. The elevator stopped on the 16th floor. Before we even reached 1609, we heard an anxious voice. Miss Sue. Miss Sue is here. Auntie Zhang stood at the doorway, her face full of worry. Old Lou's water pipe burst. There's water everywhere. We quickly walked in and saw the living room was a mess. A man in his 60s stood helplessly in the water. About half an inch of water had already pooled on the floor. Uncle Lou, don't worry. Su Yuqing quickly assessed the situation, then turned to me and said, Go turn off the main water valve. I immediately sprang into action. When I returned, I found she had already rolled up her sleeves and was helping to clear the water. The hem of her sweater was soaked, but she seemed completely unfazed. Miss Sue, old Lou said guiltily, I've really troubled you. Uncle Lou, you and my father were old classmates. This little thing is nothing, she said while mopping the floor. You live alone usually. If anything happens, you must tell me right away. Hearing this, I suddenly understood why she had rushed over so quickly. So that was the connection between them. It was an hour later by the time we finished cleaning up. The repairman finally arrived, and we breathed a sigh of relief. Uncle Lou, why don't you go rest at Annie Zhang's place for a bit? I'll call you when it's fixed, she arranged thoughtfully. Watching the old man leave with Annie Zhang supporting him, she let out a long sigh and only then seemed to realize how disheveled she looked. Her sweater was completely soaked, and her hair was a bit messy. You really are. I couldn't help but say. Really what? She raised an eyebrow, looking at me. Really completely different from the rumors. She paused for a moment, then smiled. So, don't believe rumors so easily. Saying this, she took a document out of her bag. This is for you. I took it and looked. It was a detailed statement of property management fees, clearly listing the income and expenses for the past 3 years. Weren't you going to help me clarify the matter about the property fees? She smoothed her damp hair. You need convincing evidence. Looking at her serious expression, I suddenly felt an impulse. Want to have dinner together tonight? She was clearly taken aback, then gave a half smile. What? Change your mind because you saw a different side of me? No, I shook my head. I just feel we need to get to know each other again. She was silent for a moment, then said softly, Okay, really, it was my turn to be surprised. But she picked up her bag, ready to leave. Before that, you need to sort out the property fee matter first. I don't like thinking about work while I'm eating. Watching her retreating figure, I suddenly felt that this seemingly strong woman also had a captivating side. Back in my room, I immediately started organizing the documents. The group chat was still buzzing with heated discussion, but this time, I knew what to do. Just as I was about to send a message, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Su Yuqing. Remember to wash the sweater before wearing it again. It's covered in water stains from today. I looked down at my own clothes, which were also wet, and for some reason, a warmth suddenly spread through my heart. This feeling of being cared for felt really good. Outside the window, the setting sun dyed the sky orange-red. I knew this winter's story had only just begun, and the relationship between us seemed to be quietly changing amidst this incident. Early in the morning, I was woken up by a series of urgent knocks on the door. Opening the door, I saw Annie Zhang standing there with an anxious look on her face. "Mr. Lee, something's happened." Her voice was trembling. "The resident in 1709 is going to the property management office to complain about Miss Sue." I instantly became wide awake. Just yesterday, I posted in the group chat clarifying the property management fees. And today someone is going to complain? What's going on? They say it's about the renovation. Annie Zhang lowered her voice. That newly moved-in resident, Sun Jianjun, was shouting downstairs early this morning, saying he's going to the property management to accuse Miss Sue of malicious price hiking and deliberately making things difficult. I quickly changed my clothes and followed Annie Zhang downstairs. At the entrance of the property management office, a middle-aged man in his 40s was arguing heatedly with the staff. "This landlord is outrageous." His voice was filled with anger. "Changing the agreed-upon renovation schedule so suddenly. Isn't this deliberately making things difficult?" "Mr. Sun, please calm down." A staff member tried to soothe him. "Calm down." His voice grew louder. "I've already booked the construction crew. The work schedule is all set, and now you just change it like that? Who's going to bear the losses?" Only then did I remember that Su Yuqing had indeed adjusted the renovation schedule a few days ago, because of my suggestion. I hadn't expected this decision would actually spark a new conflict. Just as I was hesitating whether to step forward, a familiar voice came from behind me. "I will bear the losses." Turning around, I saw Su Yuqing standing there. She was wearing a dark blue professional suit today, her expression calm, revealing no emotion. Sun Jianjun was stunned for a moment, then sneered. "Scared now, are you? What took you so long?" "Mr. Sun," her voice remained calm. "I understand how you feel, but what do you understand?" He interrupted her. "Do you know how much the penalty is for construction delays? Do you know the daily wages of the crew I hired? I can compensate for all of that." She remained composed. "But the renovation schedule must be adjusted. This is for the consideration of all residents." "Bullshit," he suddenly cursed. "You're just abusing your power as the homeowner's representative to do whatever you want." Seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, I subconsciously took a step forward. "Sir, please watch your language." He turned his head and glared at me. "And who are you?" "I'm the tenant from 1809. I looked him straight in the eye, and I was the one who first proposed adjusting the renovation schedule. The scene suddenly fell silent. Su Yuqing clearly hadn't expected me to step forward voluntarily. She looked at me with a complex expression in her eyes. "So it was you." Sun Jianjun pointed at my nose. "Ah, so you're the one pulling strings behind the scenes." I wasn't pulling strings. I maintained my composure. I was considering all the residents. Think about it. If every homeowner renovated on weekends, how would the other residents rest? Then what about renovating on weekdays? What about the people who work? "So we can discuss a reasonable time," I continued. "For example, from 2 to 5 in the afternoon on weekdays. That way, it won't affect work, nor will it disturb rest." He was stunned, clearly not expecting me to propose a concrete plan. Besides, I glanced at Su Yuqing. "The landlord has already promised to compensate you for your losses." That shows a very sincere attitude. A brief silence fell over the scene. Auntie Zhang timely brought over a glass of water and handed it to Sun Jianjun. "Mr. Sun, have some water to cool down. We're all neighbors. Let's discuss things properly." He took the water, his mood seemingly calmer. Then, "What's the specific arrangement?" For the next half hour, we sat in the property management office discussing the renovation schedule and compensation plan in detail. Finally, witnessed by the property management, both parties reached an agreement. By the time everything was settled, it was almost noon. After seeing Sun Jianjun off, Su Yuqing turned to leave. "Wait," I called out to her. "Want to grab lunch together?" She stopped walking without turning around. "Why did you help me?" "Because you were right." I walked up to face her, and besides, this whole thing started because of me. She finally turned around, her eyes holding an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. So, it's because of guilt? Not entirely. I smiled. It's also because I've finally understood something. What is it? That you're someone trustworthy. She paused for a moment, then a faint smile appeared. Let's go, I know a good restaurant nearby. During lunch, we talked a lot. She told me how she had gradually bought up 1/3 of the properties in this building, step by step, and how she stuck to her management principles despite pressure from various sides. Actually, I know many people think I'm too forceful. She poked at the food in front of her with her chopsticks. But there are many elderly people living in this building, like Uncle Lou. If I don't stand firm, who will protect their rights? Looking at her earnest profile, I suddenly felt this woman was really different. She was forceful, yet it was to protect the weak. She seemed cold, yet showed warmth at crucial moments. Oh, right, she suddenly remembered something. That post you shared in the group chat yesterday, it was well written. Really, I was a bit surprised. I was just telling the truth. No, she shook her head. You didn't just state the facts, you also explained reasons. That's why so many people believed your explanation. Just as she was speaking, her phone rang. It was a call from the property management company, saying there were some documents needing her signature. I have to go. She got up to leave, but then paused. Are you free tonight? I nodded. Then wait for me on the rooftop. She winked. I'll treat you to coffee, as thanks for your help today. Watching her retreating figure, I suddenly remembered what Wang Xiaoming had said. That woman is too cunning. Thinking about it now, she wasn't just cunning. She was practically an unfathomable enigma. That evening, I arrived early on the rooftop. Night deepened. The city lights came on one by one, and the distant skyscrapers looked like jewels embedded in the night sky. Have you been waiting long? Her voice came from behind me. Turning around, I saw she had changed into casual clothes, her hair falling loosely over her shoulders, making her look much softer. Just arrived not long ago. She handed me the coffee, then leaned against the railing, gazing at the distant night view. Actually about today? Thank you. No need to thank me, I said with a smile. I owe you one. Is that so? She turned her head to look at me, a smile in her eyes. All right, I'll remember that. The night wind lifted strands of her hair, carrying a faint, sweet scent. At that moment, I suddenly felt an urge to move closer, to tell her that I had actually long since. Oh, right, she suddenly spoke, interrupting my thoughts. The plumbing in 1609 is fixed. Old Uncle Lou asked me to thank you for your help the other day. It was nothing. I came back to my senses. Do you help them out like this often? They're all old friends of my father's, her voice softened. In this city, they're pretty much the only uncles and aunts who still care if I'm eating on time, or if I put on warmer clothes when it gets cold. Hearing this, I suddenly understood why she cared so much about this building. It wasn't just her investment, it was her connection, her anchor. So, I couldn't help but ask, your parents? They're back in our hometown. She cut me off? They think it's too hard for a girl like me out here on my own. But, she didn't finish, but I understood what she meant. Everyone striving in this city carries that same stubbornness, that refusal to give up, don't they? If you get tired, I said softly, you can find someone to share the burden. She turned her head to look at me, her eyes exceptionally bright in the moonlight. Are you worried about me? Just as I was struggling for an answer, her phone rang again. It was the resident across from 1809, saying there was a problem with their faucet. I have to go check, she said helplessly. Talk another time. Watching her hurried, retreating figure, I suddenly felt that this woman was like the city itself. Seemingly tough, but hiding a soft heart. Seemingly indifferent, yet revealing warmth everywhere. And I, it seemed, was unknowingly falling deeper and deeper. This winter night felt especially long. Outside the window, the wind howled, carrying fine raindrops that tapped against the glass. I was working late, dealing with an urgent bug, when suddenly the entire room plunged into darkness. The power was out. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and checked the time. It was already 10:30 p.m. Just as I was about to go downstairs to check the situation, my phone suddenly rang. It was Su Yuqing. Are you home? Her voice sounded a little urgent. Yes, the power just went out suddenly. I'm stuck in the elevator. My heart skipped a beat. Which floor? Between the 17th and 18th floors. Her voice sounded relatively calm. Building management said there's a problem with the backup power, and we have to wait for the repair crew. I'll be right there. Hanging up, I rushed out of my room. The hallway was pitch black, with only a few residents moving around using flashlights. By the faint light, I quickly walked to the elevator entrance. Through the gap between the doors, I could see the elevator car stuck between floors. Su Yuqing was inside, her phone's light illuminating her slightly pale face. "Are you okay?" I asked, leaning close to the door gap. "I'm all right," she said, forcing calmness. "Just a bit cold." Only then did I notice she was dressed lightly today, just a white blouse and a black pencil skirt. It seemed she had come back for something unexpectedly and got caught in the power outage. Management said the repair crew won't be here for another half hour. Her voice trembled slightly. "You should go back. You don't need to wait here." "I'm not leaving. I'll keep you company until they arrive," I said firmly. In the darkness, I thought I saw her smile. "Afraid I'll be scared?" "Not afraid you'll be scared." I leaned against the wall and sat down. "I'm afraid you'll be bored." She chuckled softly. "Li Wuxin, when did you become such a smooth talker?" "Probably forced out by a certain assertive landlady." This joke lightened the mood a little. We chatted on and off like this, talking about work and life, the weather and food. "Actually," she said suddenly, "I was very afraid of the dark when I was little." "Really?" I was a bit surprised. I couldn't tell. MHM. So afterwards, always left all the lights on at home, even keeping a small night light on when I slept. Her voice sounded exceptionally soft in the dark. It wasn't until university that I slowly overcame this fear. Why overcome it? Isn't keeping a night light fine? Because... She paused. I didn't want others to think I was weak. This sentence made my heart tremble. So this seemingly strong woman also had a vulnerable side. "Being afraid has nothing to do with being weak," I said softly. "Everyone is afraid of something. Like me, I'm particularly afraid of betraying someone's trust." Her laughter came from the darkness. "Is that why you're always so serious?" "Maybe." I laughed too. "But recently I've discovered that some things don't require being so serious. What's important is to feel them with your heart." Just as I finished speaking, a low rumble of thunder echoed in the sky. She was clearly startled, almost dropping her phone. "It's okay." I quickly comforted her. "I'm here." "I know." Her voice was very soft. "So I'm not scared at all now." This sentence made my heart suddenly beat faster. In the darkness, I could even hear my own heartbeat. "You know," she continued, "I've actually always envied you." "Envied me?" "MHM. I envy how simply you see things, how you always treat others with such sincerity." There was a hint of emotion in her voice, whereas I always tend to overcomplicate things. "But you do very well," I said earnestly. "You protect those who need protecting. You uphold the principles you should uphold. That's not complicated, that's responsible." The elevator car was quiet for a moment, then her soft laughter came. "Seems I really can't underestimate you, Li Wuxin." "How so?" "You always manage to say the most touching things at crucial moments." I was about to say something when I suddenly heard footsteps from upstairs. The maintenance crew had arrived. "Miss Su, are you all right?" they asked, peering through the elevator door. "I'm fine." Her voice returned to its usual calmness. "Please hurry up with the repairs." Half an hour later, the elevator was finally fixed. When she stepped out of the elevator, I noticed her eyes were a little red, perhaps from the tension and fatigue. "Want to come over to my place for a bit?" I asked. "I still have coffee." She shook her head. "No, it's already very late." Saying this, she turned to leave, but then stopped. "But, thank you for staying with me." She turned back, her gaze exceptionally gentle in the moonlight. "If you hadn't been here today, I might have really been scared." "It was nothing," I smiled. "After all, I'm your tenant." "Tenant." She repeated the word, her gaze somewhat complex. "All right then, Mr. Tenant. Are you free this weekend?" I paused for a moment. "I am." "Why?" "I'd like to treat you to a meal." She revealed a sly smile. "Consider it thanks for your company tonight." "Is this really about a meal this time? Not a talk about work? What do you think?" She winked, turned, and left. "Saturday, 12 noon. I'll wait for you downstairs." Watching her back disappear down the end of the corridor, my heartbeat still hadn't calmed down. Tonight's experience felt like a dream. In that darkness, it seemed we had shed all our pretenses, revealing our truest selves. Back in my room, the power was back on. I turned on my computer. The screen still showed that unfinished page of code. But right now, my mind was filled with her voice in the darkness, and that faint, almost imperceptible sigh. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a message from her. Asleep yet? Not yet, dealing with work. Workaholic, she replied quickly. By the way, that thing you said earlier. Which thing? The one where you said I did well. She paused, then sent another message. Thank you. Looking at that simple word, I suddenly understood that beneath her strong exterior, perhaps she had always been waiting for someone who could understand her. And had I, without realizing it, become that person? The rain outside had stopped at some point. Moonlight filtered through the clouds, casting a cool halo on the windowsill. But right now, my heart felt warm. This unexpected winter night might become a turning point in our relationship. As for Saturday's lunch, I was already looking forward to it. Saturday's sunlight was exceptionally bright. I stood downstairs at the apartment building, looking at the 11:55 display on my phone, feeling a little nervous. This was our first real date, in a sense, although she'd said it was just to thank me. Have you been waiting long? A familiar voice came from behind me. Turning around, I couldn't help but freeze. Today she was wearing a beige cashmere coat over a light blue turtleneck sweater, radiating a gentle aura. It was a complete contrast to her usual sharp, decisive image. Just arrived, I subconsciously adjusted my collar. Let's go. She turned toward the parking lot. I'm taking you somewhere. Settling into her car, a faint scent of jasmine lingered in the air. The fragrance was similar to the one in her office, but somehow softer. Where are we going? I couldn't help asking. Somewhere that can answer all your questions. She smiled mysteriously, focusing on driving. The car drove out of the city and gradually entered the suburbs. The scenery along the road changed from skyscrapers to leafy trees, and the air felt fresher. Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of a small, ordinary-looking restaurant. A sign reading, Old Lou's Home Cooking, hung by the door, and the faint aroma of food drifted out. I was a bit puzzled. You'll know once you go inside. She pushed the door open first and went in. The restaurant wasn't large, but it was tidy and clean. Some old photographs hung on the walls, looking quite dated. Just as I was looking around, a familiar voice called out. Xiao Qing is here. I was surprised to see that the person calling her was Old Lou from 1609. What surprised me even more was that he wasn't wearing his usual casual clothes, but a chef's uniform. Uncle Lou, she greeted him warmly. I brought someone special today to try your specialty dishes. Old Lou glanced at me, a meaningful smile spreading across his face. It's the young man who helped out last time. Come on, sit over here. We were led to a seat by the window. Sunlight streamed through the glass, warm and pleasant. Uncle Lou is a very good cook, she explained. He opened this restaurant more than 20 years ago. It's an old establishment. It's just that his son mainly runs it now. He only comes occasionally. Then why does he still live in the apartment building? I was a bit confused. Because her gaze suddenly softened. That place holds shared memories for him and my father. Seeing my puzzled expression, she slowly began to explain. More than 20 years ago, my father and Uncle Lou started a business together. They were both very young then, full of ideals and passion, but short on funds. Uncle Lou invested all his savings to support my father's dream. And then, later, my father's company grew bigger and bigger, but Uncle Lou insisted on keeping his small restaurant. My father wanted to repay him, so he sold him the apartment in the building at a low price. Her voice held a touch of emotion. All these years, Uncle Lou has lived there. He says he wants to watch over the place that witnessed their friendship. Just then, Old Lou came over carrying several dishes. I noticed they were all simple home-style dishes, but they looked, smelled, and tasted wonderful. Try them, he said with a cheerful smile. These were all your father's favorite dishes. She took a bite, and her eyes suddenly grew moist. It tastes exactly the same as when I was a child. Seeing her expression, I suddenly understood many things. Why she took such good care of the old residents in the apartment building, why she insisted on being the homeowner representative, why she was so persistent about the property management fees. Actually, she put down her chopsticks and looked directly into my eyes. You must be very curious why I chose you as a tenant, right? I nodded. that had indeed been puzzling me all along. Because I saw your honesty, she said. When you viewed the apartment, everyone else was just saying flattering things. Only you pointed out the problems directly. That reminded me of my father. He always said one should be honest in life and upright in actions. So you deliberately made things difficult for me? I couldn't help asking. Not making things difficult, she smiled. It was a test. I wanted to see if you were really as honest as you seemed at first impression. And the result? The result proved, her gaze softened again, that you're even better than I imagined. You're not just honest, you're also kind and considerate of others. Like that day on the rooftop, you clearly could have used the situation to pressure me, but you chose understanding and support instead. Hearing this, I suddenly remembered something. Wait, so that internal email from a property management company. I had them send it. She winked mischievously. I wanted to see if you would take advantage of the situation. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You really are sly. She finished my sentence. That's something my father taught me. He said that sometimes you need a little cunning to protect the things you care about. Just as she spoke, old Lou brought over a bowl of soup. Try this. It's your mother's secret recipe. Looking at the soup before her, her gaze softened once more. Did you know? My mother used to always say that you should find someone who can tolerate all your little schemes. Because someone who truly loves you won't dislike you for your flaws, but will instead find those little imperfections endearing. My heart suddenly beat faster. So, do you think I'm that kind of person? She didn't answer directly, but smiled and said, What do you think? Sunlight streamed through the window onto her face, outlining her features with a golden edge. In that moment, she was no longer the assertive landlady, but a girl with a sweet smile. Actually, I said, mustering my courage, ever since that rainy day, I've thought you were special. Which rainy day? She feigned confusion. The night the pipe burst. I continued. You were completely different then, compared to usual. Was I? She lowered her head, a faint blush appearing on her cheeks. I was just scared then. No. I shook my head. You were real then, just like you are now. She looked up at me, her eyes holding an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. So, which me do you like better? I like them all. The words tumbled out of me. The strong you, the gentle you, the sly you, the real you, I like them all. After I said that, we both froze. An indescribable emotion seemed to hang in the air. Silly, she said softly. Isn't it a bit too soon to say things like that? It's not too soon. I looked directly into her eyes. If anything, it's too late. Her gaze flickered for a moment. Then she lowered her head and took a sip of soup, hiding her emotions. This soup is a bit salty. I knew she was changing the subject, but I had already seen the hint of a smile at the corner of her eyes. Some things didn't need to be said. We both understood. When we left the restaurant, the sky had already begun to darken. The afterglow of the sunset coated the city in a golden light. The distant skyscrapers looked like giant burning torches. Want to go for a walk? She asked suddenly. I nodded. We walked slowly along the street. Neither of us spoke, but the silence felt comfortable. Li Wuxin, she suddenly stopped walking. Thank you. For what? Thank you for helping me realize that I can be myself. Her voice was soft, but I heard her clearly. Around you, I don't have to pretend to be so strong. I looked at her profile, suddenly wanting very much to hug her, to tell her she was already strong enough, but I was afraid of scaring her. In the end, I just said softly, You're already great just the way you are. She turned to look at me, a smile in her eyes. Are you saying that as my tenant, or as Li Wuxin? Both, I said with a smile, but in the future, I prefer to say it as someone special. All right, she winked slyly. Then that depends on your performance. In the sunset's glow, her smile was warmer than the sunlight. I knew, from that moment on, our relationship would no longer be simply landlord and tenant. The gentle winter sunlight spilled onto my desk. I was working on a complex project when my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Wang Xiaoming. Heard there's been progress with you and the landlady? I couldn't help but smile. This guy's grapevine was quite effective. How did you know? Annie Zhang told me. Said you two went out for dinner over the weekend. Just as I was about to reply, a new message popped up. It was from Su Yuqing. Are you free tonight? The apartment building is having a homeowners meeting. Need your help. Sure, what time? 6 o'clock. I'll wait for you at 1809. Her simple reply seemed to carry a hint of a smile. Putting down my phone, I realized I was smiling unconsciously. This had been happening more and more lately. Just thinking about her put me in a good mood. At 5:50 p.m., I knocked on the door of 1809 right on time. The moment the door opened, the aroma of coffee wafted out. "Come in." She was wearing a light purple knit sweater today, looking particularly soft. "Have some coffee first." On the coffee table sat 2 steaming mugs of Americano coffee, next to a stack of documents. This scene reminded me of the first time I came to her room. Only the atmosphere was much warmer now. "Actually, there's no homeowners association meeting," she smiled slyly. "I just wanted an excuse to ask you to help me sort documents." "Just to sort documents?" I raised an eyebrow, looking at her. "Of course not." She pushed the coffee towards me. "Mainly, I wanted to ask you to dinner as a date." Hearing the word date, my heart suddenly beat faster. Although our relationship had already progressed substantially, this was the first time she'd said it so directly. "So, the documents were the excuse, and the date is the real reason? What do you think?" She winked, "But the documents do need sorting too. I have a business trip this weekend and need to get these finished." I smiled and picked up a document, happy to collaborate. For the next 2 hours, we sorted documents and chatted. She told me her company was recently expanding into new business areas, and this trip was to discuss an important project. "Nervous?" I asked casually. "A little." She revealed a rare hint of unease. "If this project is successful, the company can enter a new field." "It will be successful." I looked into her eyes. "You always manage to do everything well." She paused for a moment, then broke into a warm smile. "You always know what to say to put me at ease." As we were talking, I suddenly noticed a problem with some data on a document. "The calculation here doesn't seem right." She leaned closer to look, the faint scent of her perfume lingering near my nose. The distance was too close enough to make my heart beat a little faster. "You're right." Her voice was right beside my ear. "This data really is wrong. Thanks to you finding it. Otherwise, I would have embarrassed myself this weekend." "So what's my reward?" I asked deliberately. She turned her head, a sly smile on her face. "Tonight's dinner, is that enough?" "Not enough." I pretended to be serious. "At least add dessert." "Greedy." She gave me a light push, but her eyes were full of amusement. "All right, I promise." As night fell, we finally finished processing all the documents. She put on her coat, and we went downstairs together to a nearby restaurant. On the way, she suddenly said, "Actually, I've always been grateful for that downpour the other day." "Which day?" "The day the pipe burst." She said with a smile, "If it weren't for that accident, I might never have discovered this other side of you." "Me too." I looked at her profile. "If it weren't for that day, I might have always thought you were just an assertive landlady. And now—" She turned her head to look at me. "What kind of person do you think I am now?" "Someone who doesn't say what they mean," I said deliberately, clearly wanting a date, but making all sorts of excuses. Her face immediately turned red. "Who said I wanted a date?" "Then what is this now?" I asked with a smile. "A homeowners association meeting?" She bit her lip without speaking, but the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve upwards. Like this, she was particularly cute, completely different from her usual decisive and efficient image. In the restaurant, we sat facing each other. The candlelight flickered, casting a soft halo on her face. "Oh, right." She suddenly remembered something. "I'm away on business this weekend. Could you help look after Uncle Lou?" "Of course." "Also," she looked down, stirring the soup in front of her, "my parents are coming to visit me next week." I immediately understood her meaning. "Do you want me to be there?" She seemed a bit embarrassed. "If you're willing." "I'd be delighted." I smiled and said, "But you have to tell me, what role am I supposed to play?" She looked up, a smile in her eyes. "What do you think?" "Boyfriend?" I asked tentatively. "In your dreams." She feigned annoyance, but her eyes were smiling. "Let's start with suitor." "All right." I pretended to be aggrieved. "Does that mean I need to submit a suitor application first and wait for your approval?" She chuckled, amused. "Li Wuxin, when did you become such a smooth talker?" "Probably caught it from a certain landlady." After dinner, we bought a cake at a dessert shop down the street. Night deepened, and the streetlights stretched our shadows long. "Want to go up to the rooftop for a bit?" she suggested suddenly. I nodded. 10 minutes later, we were on the rooftop. The night breeze was cool, and she subconsciously leaned a little closer to me. Cold? I asked. A little. I took off my jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She didn't refuse, instead snuggling into it. Your jacket smells like coffee. Maybe it picked up the smell at your place. She laughed. No, it's your scent. You always drink so much coffee. You're practically turning into coffee yourself. In the distance, the city's neon lights flickered like stars scattered across the night sky. We stood there quietly, enjoying this rare moment of peace. Li Wuxin, she suddenly spoke. Do you believe in fate? I do, I said, looking into her eyes. Otherwise, how else would I have chosen your place out of so many houses? Smooth talker. She gave me a light tap. I'm serious. I'm serious too. I took her hand. From the first day I met you, I felt it wasn't a coincidence. Her hand trembled slightly, but she didn't pull it away. So when did you start liking me? I finished her sentence. Probably from the time you came over in the middle of the night to check the pipes. You were so real then, so endearing. I was such a mess back then. She sounded a little embarrassed. In my eyes, you look beautiful no matter what. She leaned against the railing, the moonlight outlining her profile softly. You always know how to say things that make my heart flutter. Because you always do things that make my heart flutter. She turned to face me, a smile in her eyes. Like what? Like right now, I said softly, deliberately getting me to say these things that make you shy. She lowered her head, smiling. I find her getting to know me better and better. Likewise. I looked into her eyes. Aren't you getting to know me better too? The night wind lifted strands of her hair, and her eyes seemed exceptionally bright in the moonlight. In that moment, all words felt superfluous. We just looked at each other, the rhythm of our heartbeats gradually synchronizing. Come back early on the weekend, I said softly. She nodded. When I get back, we'll go meet my parents together. Okay. At that moment, I suddenly understood that some feelings don't need elaborate words. A simple promise is enough. Early spring sunlight streamed through the French windows into the room. I stood in front of the mirror, repeatedly adjusting my collar. Today was the day Su Yuqing's parents were visiting. I was more nervous than I had been for interviews at major companies. If you keep fiddling with it, the shirt's going to get wrinkled, Wang Xiaoming quipped from the sofa. Don't worry, Annie Zhang said, walking over with a cup of hot tea. Miss Su's parents are very easygoing people. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Su Yuqing. My parents have landed at the airport. They'll arrive in about 2 hours. Go wait for me at Old Lou's place first. Arriving at Old Lou's restaurant, I was surprised to find the place newly decorated. Old Lou was busy in the kitchen. Seeing me come in, he chuckled and said, Perfect timing. Help me taste this soup. Uncle Lou is today. Of course, it's to welcome an old friend. He brought out a bowl of soup. This is Old Sue's and my masterpiece. 20 years ago, this soup cemented our determination to start a business. I took the soup and had a sip. A rich aroma instantly filled my mouth. The flavor was completely different from the last time I tasted it. It seemed to have an added special nuance. Is it good? Old Lou asked expectantly. Very good, I said sincerely, but it tastes different from last time. That's because we added a special ingredient this time. He smiled mysteriously. It's Little Ching's mother's secret recipe. Just as he spoke, a familiar voice came from the doorway. Uncle Lou, my parents are here. Turning around, I saw Su Yuqing standing at the entrance. She was wearing a pale, pink dress today, her hair casually draped over her shoulders, exuding an air of gentleness. Behind her stood a middle-aged couple with a refined and elegant demeanor. Old Su. Old Lou hurried out and warmly embraced Su's father. Old Lou, Su's father said with a smile. You've renovated the place again? Of course, Old Lou said proudly. We have honored guests today. Su's mother noticed me then, her eyes holding a hint of inquiry. And this is? Hello, Auntie. I stepped forward. I'm Li Wuxin. So you're the one our little Qing worries about so much, Su's mother said with a smile, sizing me up slightly. I looked at Su Yuqing with some surprise and saw her face flush slightly. Mom, what are you saying? What? Shy now, Su's mother teased. Weren't you quite enthusiastic on the phone a few days ago? Mom, seeing her rare embarrassed look, I couldn't help but smile. So, she had such an adorable side in front of her parents, too. At the dinner table, the atmosphere gradually warmed up. Old Lou and Sue's father reminisced about amusing stories from their youth, while Sue's mother occasionally served us food and asked me about my work in life. Little Lee, Sue's father suddenly looked at me. "I hear you're a programmer?" "Yes, uncle. Do you know what old Lou and I first tried to start a business in?" I shook my head. Su Yuqing, however, became interested. "Dad, didn't you start out in trading?" "That came later," Sue's father said with a smile. "Originally, we actually wanted to do software development." This news surprised both Su Yuqing and me. "Back then, I had just finished learning programming," Sue's father continued. "I thought the industry had a great future." Although old Lou didn't understand the technology, he was very supportive. Unfortunately, for various reasons, we couldn't stick with it. So, Sue's mother picked up the thread. "When old Sue heard you were a programmer, he was especially happy. He said it must be fate." I looked at Su Yuqing and found her looking back at me, her eyes smiling. After dinner, old Lou brought out a bottle of red wine he had treasured for many years. Sue's father raised his glass and said meaningfully, "Some connections, like this wine, need time to mature." "Dad," Su Yuqing was a little embarrassed. "My girl," Sue's father's voice softened. "Dad just hopes you can find someone who truly understands you." Seeing little Lee today, your mom and I feel very reassured. Hearing this, my heart suddenly felt exceptionally warm. By the time we left the restaurant, it was already evening. After seeing her parents off, Su Yuqing and I walked back to the apartment together. "So, you've mentioned me to your parents?" I couldn't help asking. Her voice was soft. "I told them I'd met someone special." "Special how?" "Especially stubborn," she smiled mischievously. "He was clearly here to rent, but he was always meddling in things." "That's because I stopped walking and looked at her earnestly. I met someone especially worth caring about." She paused for a moment, then leaned gently against my shoulder. "Li Wuxin, you're getting better and better at sweet talk." "It's not sweet talk," I said softly. "It's from the heart." As night fell, we came to the rooftop. This place had witnessed so many of our stories, from initial antagonism to later understanding, and now to knowing and loving each other. "Do you remember the first time we met?" she asked suddenly. "Of course. I remember," I said with a smile. "You were standing by the window, backlit, like an aloof goddess." "The me back then," she leaned against the railing. "Was I very unlikable?" "No," I walked to her side. "Back then, you were just protecting yourself. Like this building, you turned it into a fortress, both to protect others and to protect yourself." She turned her head to look at me, the moonlight reflecting in her eyes. "And now, you've learned to share," I held her gently. "Learn to trust and learn to love. You taught me all of this." Her voice choked up a little. "No," I shook my head. "You were the one who chose to open your heart, who chose to trust me." She nodded gently in my arms. "Because you're worthy of trust, worthy of reliance." The night breeze blew gently, bringing the warmth of early spring. In the distance, the city's neon lights flickered, as if witnessing this tender moment. "Oh, right." She suddenly remembered something. "Your lease is almost up." "Yeah," I said with a smile. "Time to renew." "No need." She looked up, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Because from now on, this will be our home." "Is that a marriage proposal?" I asked teasingly. "Dream on." She gave me a light punch. "Just giving you a chance to prepare ahead of time." "All right." I held her tightly. "Then I'll give you a promise in advance, too. For this lifetime, I will always be your most reliable tenant." "Just a tenant?" "No." I looked into her eyes. "The person who loves you most." Under the moonlight, her smile was more beautiful than spring flowers. I knew our story was just beginning, and this apartment building would witness every moment of our future, just as it had witnessed us meeting, getting to know each other, and falling in love. From now on, the lease will expire, but love never will. Because in each other's lives, we had already signed the most special agreement.